Good morning, everyone. Welcome. This is Angela Coulter and
Siga Evagnoni.
bringing you this week's Ascended World. Every week there's something new that pops up on Facebook, and I'm just like, I don't know. More things to.
Wouldn't want you to get comfortable.
No, absolutely
Which
not.
is a perfect lead into what we're talking about.
Right? Totally. Because we started last week, talking about letting go, like closing up this year. It's been and last year, the last 2 years have been tremendous catalysts for change for us collectively and individually, and it's sort of like tying up all the lessons so that we can move into what's next.
Right. Yeah, it's like, okay, you've been given practice and plenty of time to figure out how to navigate all this and how to shift and change and adapt and let go. And have you gotten it yet? Have you figured?
Right.
Have you mastered it?
Have you let go? Yeah, it was funny because I had that over the weekend. I had a funny thing. Good morning, Yasmin. I had 2 nights in a row, I had something come up to trigger me that was from stuff that had gone on this year, right? And it was subtle and almost subliminary, right? It was on a TV show. It was a side conversation at a party. And I realized, because the first reaction was, oh shit, what did I not hit on that, right? But then I sort of sat with it and I realized, oh no, it's here just because it's going to be here, because it's in other people's realities. And it's for me to check in to say, am I done with this?
Right.
And can I just coexist with it without it triggering me anymore? Mm-hmm. Right. And I realized, oh, well, that's a very different energy, right?
And can I coexist with it from the perspective of allowing others to get embroiled in it and
right.
Like a wave tossing you head over heels with it.
Without me feeling like I have to get drawn into.
Yes. Right. Yeah. And that's really critical, because when you observe that, you literally get that body check of your own, like, okay, is this resonating anywhere within me? Because if it is, I need to let it go. I need to check and make sure that I have dotted all my I's and crossed all my T's.
Absolutely. And that's what this weekend came up for me. And it was the good part about it was catching that, right? Because it was a habit to want to back up and go, whoa, like, what have I missed? And then getting paranoid and getting, like blah, blah, blah.
And I believe that in doing that, you create something for yourself, because you're saying, I want to find this.
Right.
So you create it to find.
Right. Right. And when I checked in, I was like, nope. I was like, no, actually, nope, that was just there, and then it was even funny because then it came up again in a different, a different context, like the next day. And I'm like, and it was just the squinting of the eyes going,
right.
Feeling around, right. Talking about it and then going, okay, I get it. Like, nope, I get it. And then there was like,
and the nice thing is this is not for me.
Yeah. And it was like almost no trigger at that point. I mean, it was just a little blip and I was like, oh, well, that's a lot easier.
Right. Right.
And then I realized.
And then it becomes reassuring. It's like, oh, yeah, I did this.
Yes. Yes. And it puts us in a very different place. And I think that's what we're going to be hitting on this month for sure. Right. Or absolutely. However long it takes whoever, all of us individually and collectively to shift into the next cycle or the next phase.
Well, like we talked about Thursday, I think we talked this past week about today. And it's like, we realized that 2022 is not a rebirth it's a new beginning.
Yes. And it was funny because, so let's share what we were talking about. So exciting and yummy. So we are going to be launching this, well, this week, next week. I don't even remember. I think next week.
I think next week.
Next week, we're going to be launching.
Due to travel plans, it's next week.
Yeah, both of us have very conflicting travel plans over the next 7 days. So we will be launching for January a energetic vision board class workshop. And it's changing the way we do vision boards. It's all creating from the energy and the emotion of creation versus the details of the, like, we can put the details in it, but it's like doing it from a much different place energetically. So we stop getting stuck in the details. So we were talking about that, and we're talking about launching this and all this kind of stuff. And I said, well, you know what? It's 2022. So that's 222. So I looked it up. And the funny thing is, if you look up the angel number things in 222, it means new beginnings, which I was like, well, that's just perfect. Because we were talking about how people are like, oh, rebirth and rebirth and rebirth. And it's like, yeah, but you know what? The challenge that we have with rebirthing, and we do it with reincarnation, we do it with so many things we rebirth, is we hold on to things that we've had before and drag them forward with us into.
Because when you say the prefix, it's a repeat, which means that it's what's that song? Second verse, same as the first. Could get better, but it's gonna get worse. I think we're on the third round.
Yeah. So it feels like, so this is all of this stuff this year has been coming up and regurgitating and coming to the surface and keeping the friction going and keeping the agitation, so that we then do the true transformation to a different state altogether, instead of holding that same state with us all the time. And it's not that we're not honoring it, and it's not that like we're throwing it away. We're allowing it to just assimilate back into the whole, instead of needing those elements of drama and suffering or limitation or whatever to be our catalyst for change, like need to be our catalyst for change, right? Need to be our propulsion anymore. And now it's like, what if we just create it?
Right.
What a difference.
Well, and created from that holographic wholeness that we talk about. So it's not create from a place of need. It's not create from a place of lack, or create from a place of unworthiness or distrust, or, irresponsibility or unconscious creation. I mean, it's that complete wholeness and oneness,
Yes.
creating from that place, which I find is just totally different.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why I think this stuff is coming up. Good morning, Gloria. That's why I believe this stuff is coming up in this way, like we're talking about, of, are you really done with this? Can you see it? Can you see it in realities around you and not take it back on as your own? And that's so here's the thing. And many will say, how can you tell the difference? Right? Because we go from this place of denial saying, oh, well, look at that happening to this person, and that happening to this person, and that happening to this person. Right. And it's all them. So there's that denial, right? To, oh, wait, that was just a message back to me of the stuff that I'm not looking at within myself. Huge shifting, letting go of things we've identified or held on to that didn't serve us anymore, all that kind of stuff, to then say, okay, dealt with it. I've been dealing with it. I've sat with it. I've not pushed through it. I've let it really come fully into its own, right?
Right.
And now in moving forward, I can see it in all those elements around me without knowing it's a part of my singular journey right now anymore. And that's a very huge progression. I mean, that's just huge in how we can approach things. So when people ask, like, how can you do that? It's like, well, it's guidance every step of the way, right? it's all the 7 elements of our program, right? It's worthiness and trust and guidance and self-responsibility and forgiveness and shadow loving and self-love.
I mean, it is living that.
Yes.
And you know, we designed the whole imagery around that as the flower of life.
Yes.
And it really is a living of it.
Yes.
And the synergy created by that is just so incredible.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So incredible.
And everything. So that's what we're going to be doing next year. So to come, right? We're building a community. We want to build a community in person and online of how to apply all of this into everything, right? How to saturate it.
It's that living community. It's that living that the energy of that flower of life and using it as the tool that we've taught it to be through those 7 courses and the practical application and how it allows flowing forward in your life or flowing outwardly.
Yes.
Not just expansion directions.
Right. And it takes it out of the circling and into, I think I saw that in our thing last night, out of the circling and into the spiral. Right. Expansion. Right.
Yeah.
We want to call it upward, outward, however you want to call it. But yeah. And I mean, and we're talking about, topics like financial and relationships and health and career and purpose and, physicalities, all these things and how we can apply all this stuff into every day. And so it's actually living it, right? Living ourselves in a new way versus a rebirthing way. Right.
Exactly. Which I think is, I mean, I don't know about anybody else listening to this, but I'm ready for the new way. I feel like I have rebirthed and reconstituted in every manner possible. And it's like, yep, that's all worn out.
Yeah. Well, and that's I mean, that's the fatigue that we've had, right? That's the fatigue is like, oh, again, some more, and instead it's like, okay, this is all going to bed. It's all time to say, but that's been the importance of us allowing ourselves the change, allowing ourselves to let go of these things that we have so deeply held on to or, clawed to hold on to, right? Because the ego was so desperate to identify with it. And when we finally let go, it was like, oh, and that was the whole thing this weekend was, okay, the first time it hit me, I had a bit of a trigger. The second time it hit me, I looked at it and I was like, yeah, nothing.
Yeah. And then it gets almost fascinating. Like, oh, let me look at that some more so I can see it differently than I ever have because I've been drawn in. Yes.
And it was like almost like a big breath after you haven't breathed for a while. And it's like, oh, that's very freeing. So that's the thing. And that's the journey, right? That's the progression of the journey. And we can choose to rebirth and go back to go back to what we've done before, bring it forward, do it again in a different way, bring it forward, do it again in a different way. Or we could say, I've completed that for reals.
Right.
Did it then. And yes, all of this is us. So if there are facets of me that still need that experience, then let them have it. But this facet of me, I'm done with that.
Right. And all with gratitude and coming from that place of nourishment and self-love.
Yes.
Which
is yummy.
It is yummy. That's really the only way to describe it is yummy.
Yeah. So, and so I think this was a great experience for me because it was something to start a new foothold with, right? It's when we start looking at things in a different way to say, and it's funny because then you just check in right away.
Right. Well, and we've used triggers and distractions and everything else as our means of propulsion and our means of driving us in certain directions. And we're completing that and allowing a new method of propulsion. And that is that that drawn towards your desire and creation from that place versus, well, I'm going to create this so I can get rid of this.
Yeah.
So it's like alleviating all the symptoms that you've been so distracted by, that you then are now creating from that place of what is it that I really desire.
Yes.
And I just think that is so much easier once you put it all down, put all the other stuff down.
Right. Yeah. Cause then you're like, for real, like without having to accommodate like all of this other stuff, like, because a lot of times we don't even realize we consciously hold ourselves back because we think I've got to drag this forward with me.
Right.
So
right.
if I do this, I have to accommodate dragging all that forward with me because I can.
And how am I going to have the attention and focus and energy to be able to do that and all of this still also too, versus I put this down and look at what it frees up.
Yes.
Incredible.
Like, look at how deep I can breathe now, right? What a difference.
Right.
Yeah. So it's for us and it is very different, and it will be a challenge. The biggest challenge is remembering to check in with guidance instead of being propelled by these things, right? To say, and that was it. Like I said, I let myself get triggered the first time, right?
Right.
The second time I stepped back and I was like, well, that was really interesting. Twice in 2 nights, completely different, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Is there something for me here that I'm not looking at? And I've got a very clear no. And then I said, oh, there's nothing for me here. It's just part of the reality, the other facets around me.
The observation of it.
Yes. And then it was like, oh, but the thing is, we forget to ask. And this is the training. This is the stuff that we have been talking about, why we did an entire course just on how everything is guidance in some way, shape, or form, right?
Everything is a message.
Is a message. Yeah. So it's, this is putting it all into play and living it. So that's what we're moving into, is living it, the living place of how to do things in a new way, in a new beginning, as we come into, I do love that 2022 when we looked it up and it was like, new beginning for, the 3 2s. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that fits, right? Because that's what it feels like right now.
Right.
And I'm not big on, I'm not typically big on all that stuff, but I always like to see how it all corroborates at some point, Well,
and again, it's a message that we are giving ourselves.
Right.
And it's just, okay, message received.
Yeah. So all of what we're focusing on coming up will be really, really living it differently, living. Yeah. And that's the whole ascended world thing. Like,
right. And I think that's going to be the beauty of the community that we're going to create, is that we'll be able to share all the ways that we have seen and applied this practically to allow that expansion, which I think is just, I think so many are looking for that. And I think it's
and it's gonna be fun, because it'll be something where we can all share together. We can see how it's different. We can build a place where we can, talk a different language, because it's really what it's going to become,
Right. Yes, absolutely.
And build new habits.
Right. And learn from each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but that's the key. And it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, like, and everybody's going to go, oh my God, I'm still in the middle of all this. The reason we're in the middle of all this is so that we can move forward doing it differently. Right. And that's why we're talking about this, energetic vision board for 2022 or for the next cycle. And we're going to do that in January, and we're launching the community in February, because we're really excited about really moving everything. And I'm moving all of Trinity, like the Trinity stuff forward with that, because this is living it. This is living in that space. Right. So, and now it's like funny because when we're talking Thursday and we're like, oh, well, this makes sense with all the crap we've dealt with this year.
Right.
And looking at how we had, done the forgiveness course with last February, just came to you one morning, right? We did that. And then, what, a month later, we're talking, it's like, oh yeah, let's do 7.
Right.
And then a whole program. And they just came in and we're just like, that's what this year has been breathless for us, is creating all of that and everything else. And then we're just like going with it. And that alone created so much change in upheaval in both lives.
Right.
But then in completing that this month, and then we're looking for next year, we're looking at next year, what's next. And then it's like, oh, well, look at that. It's so perfect. Right.
It is. And to be able to take all those elements and every piece of every course and internalize it to the point where you actually step through issues in your life, changes that you want to make, and it really is that magic pill that everybody's looking for.
Right.
Is that process of stepping through all those 7 courses and all those elements and all that expansion is the magic pill, because then everything just falls into place.
Yes.
Or falls out of place.
Right.
If that's what it needs to
just
do.
as easily.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we learn how to then stop dramatizing it and just saying, okay, done with that, apparently,
Right.
And yeah, like it's been intense. It's been intense for many of us. There have been many who've died. There've been many, like who've had transition, people close to us transition. We've had many relationships, careers, places we live, all of that die because, and we talk and we were so stuck. And it's funny, we get so stuck in the rebirthing thing going, oh, well, yeah, I'm going to bring that forward and whatever. And it's like, okay, right. Except no, we're just going to birth now. This is it. Now you don't have to bring that forward anymore. And yes, it can be assimilated back into your whole of that completed lesson thing or whatever. So you then create differently, right?
Right. And it almost is born through the gratitude.
Yes.
Of coming full circle with all those things that you've been bringing forward and not allowing to come full circle to a place of gratitude, to where that gratitude then fuels the expansion.
Yes. Into a spiral, into the spiral. And so, and the spiral is, so the circle is that repeating, the rebirth, right? The spiral is the letting go and expanding, completing, letting go, expanding, completing, letting go and expanding, and it's like, oh, to me that feels, and then it's just becomes exponential, right? And we can make it fun and we can make it easy and we can accept ourselves and creating it in all kinds of ways that have never been done before, because now we're letting go of how it was done in the past.
Right. It's truly doing it a different way.
Yeah.
A new.
Yes. And so that is really exciting. I mean, ever since we had these conversations last week and we're like, I'm like so excited, like, but it's almost like
the flow from that place.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's almost like these other things are coming up going, okay, make sure that's done. Make sure that's done. Make sure that's done, because we're sweeping that out and I'll bring it in and starting fresh and in a really clear, clean, clear palette, empty palette of create. But yet it's really not, because it's all full of the completed lessons. And now it's like,
and it's that palette of pure potential.
Yes. Yes. And saying, I have the hologram, and it's not just a flat palette, but now all of this part of the hologram is complete.
Right.
And now I can start working with it instead of dragging myself back into different elements of it. I can start working from it as a whole in this wholeness. And what a much more expansive kind of experience that can be. So easy peasy lemon squeezy.
Right. And as quick as that, we change everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Because part of what we have, I feel like part of the biggest lesson from this past year and this past 2 years has been truly allowing things to go, letting them go, right? Truly allowing old foundations, allowing old patterns and habits, allowing old ways of valuing ourselves go, right?
Right. Well, and it started out with that breaking down of beliefs that we had that certain things were absolutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, they'll never close everything. They'll never close all the schools. They'll never tell everybody to say, they'll never do all these things.
That would never happen, right?
That would never happen. And boom. Not only did it happen, it stayed that way. And some things are having a hard time doing different now. So, I think we've stepped through and we've actually been led through all of this, coming to this place of like, okay, you've let go of all these things and you now understand that the possibilities are infinite. What are you going to do with that?
Yep.
Are you just going to fill it back up with what you've had? Well, we'll see how long that works for you.
Well, I think we've just gotten to the point where that's just doesn't work anymore. It's too cumbersome.
It exactly.
Because energetically we hold on to it, right? And we feel ourselves as limited. So that's an old habit too. We believe ourselves as limited and everything else. And part of this shifting is saying, I can shift this to be complete, to be part of the whole again, and not to pull me down, to be in a place where I am free of its weight. Because
to release the energy held by it.
Yes.
And reclaim that for myself.
Yes.
To apply to my then creative energy.
And then expand into knowing that I have that infinite amount of energy anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the stuff that we've weighed ourselves down with in the past has been, I have to do this to create this way. It's that micromanaging. I have to create this way. And I have to work around all this. Like I have to keep this relationship or this job or this house or this whatever in place. I have to be this kind of parent or this kind of spouse to be, and I have to do all of these workarounds to hold those expectations in place and then work on that, which is a very limited way of creating versus saying, waving my magic wand, I am simply creating this.
Exactly. Yep. And letting go of that belief and control of the process.
And I trust that the hologram is going to create it in the way that I prefer, which is in joy and love and fun and, wholeness. And then we'll see how that happens. And, even saying that the ego is a little bit wistful, right? A little bit wistful in the back going, okay.
Yeah. Right. Do I chance this?
Yeah, but often, when we let go, what we forget to think about is often when we let go of something having to be a certain way, often we allow it to create itself in an even better way.
Exactly. And more than we could have imagined.
Yes.
Which I think that, and I bring it back to money. It's like, why would I sit there and say, I want $100,000 when I can say something, I want more money than I can imagine?
Right.
I think that's a pretty big difference. And why would I want to put that limit on it?
Right.
Why would I want to limit my creative power?
Right. Right. So that's really where we're at today.
Yeah, and it's such a expansive place of clarity for me personally.
Yeah. Me too.
And,
very different energy too.
It really is, and I feel that it's I don't want to say a playbook, but a new way forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's again retraining ourselves to see things in a new way. Right. Like I said, I had to have it hit me twice over the weekend before I said, wait a second. Is it for me to see as something I'm not looking at, or is it something for me to see and not react to because it's just not part of my journey, like, and these are the things that, and they're going to come up. And that's when people are going to maybe try to, like I said, the first time it came up, I got a little, I did get quite triggered, but like, and it still wasn't as bad as it's been, but then it was like, because it was the habit to get triggered by that.
Right.
And the second time I was like, oh, wait a second, let me look at this differently.
Right.
Let me do that magic eye thing and squint.
Well, and imagine you're caught up in that habit of being triggered. So then your training tells you, okay, I need to look for what is causing the trigger. And that focuses your creativity into creating the reason for the trigger. Right. And you just keep in that tight loop versus I'm not going to look for the trigger because I know that I've released the trigger.
Yep. And oh, look,
there not needing to create it.
There it goes and floats away. And now I can move on with my merry little life. Exactly. And that is the beauty of all of this. So much has, it's going on 12 years since I've been doing this professionally. It's going to be 10 years in January since I launched the Trinity Energy Progression practice. And I feel like it has just in the past 12 years, it's been a whole different, things have changed so dramatically in 12 years energetically, right?
Right. I just counted up 18 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. See, and that's crazy. Right? That was a blink of an eye. Like, I think, wow, like 12 years. I've been doing this for 12 years professionally. Like, and I feel like it was yesterday. Right. And I was like, well, okay. So looking at that, over the period of time, there's been this stuff. And I was having this conversation with somebody on Saturday night at a party. And it was interesting that I started having this conversation about the progress of how I came to doing what I do. Right. And I was talking about, seeing dead people and, like the whole period of this and all kinds of stuff. And then the intuition and whatever. And I'm like, and at the end of the day, it's now boiled down to my crusade is helping people remember how to be happy. That's really what it is.
It is.
And it was funny to hear myself say that. And I said, I can do psychic readings. I can do whatever, like I've done them. I've done all kinds of stuff like that, right? I can do medium work. I can do this. I can do that. I can do activations. I can do, channelings. I could do all of that. And yet it's all just a tiny little piece of what I can do, but what we can all do. And really, so that goes down to like what I've focused on is, and what you and I have both focused on is like how helping people to access that within themselves. Right.
Right.
And now it's really
and not be dependent on anyone for that.
Yes. Right.
And now, independence.
Right. And now coming to this place of how do we live this independence? How do we live this in freedom? Right. And take responsibility. And it seems so practical and not like, if you look at it at the surface, it can be very like, you think, oh, well, you can say, well, that's very unsexy, right? It's not sexy like an activation is, or some stuff about, the lion's gates or this portal or that portal, but it's like that stuff is what we all have access to seeing within ourselves. And when we hit that and that's what I meant by saying, well, I hope when people find their happiness, that's their self-love. That's their unconditional self-love. And when you're in that place of unconditional self-love, core 7, which is the one that launched this month, then you allow yourself to access all of that yourself. So it becomes playing with the unicorns and the rainbows and whatever, and every day, as well as it's not, it makes me think of the session, one of the sessions that we did on the retreat, the group sessions, and that what I saw with that one person, where it was like, they said when we're all out there, and she said, oh, to me, when, as part of the group thing was out there, was, oh, I keep on circling back around and I can't figure out how to get past this. I remember it was like the okay, and it's okay. And I was guided to ask, well, we're out there, well, what's this? And it was like, oh, this is a crystalline, gathering of transcendent blah 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 blah, like, and I can't even remember the words. And then I said, and it's also a puddle.
Right. Puddle of water. Right.
And then she was like, oh yeah. And then it was like, the same thing. We would be walking, it was like a tree, a forest setting. And I'm like, what is this? And then it was like, and it could be a tree, and then it could be this. And it wasn't dissing in any way the rainbows and unicorns and crystalline and gorgeousness, right, that we see in the expanded consciousness. It was saying, yes, because this is our natural state. And also, this is our natural state. When we embody ourselves here, this piece of our consciousness is for us to fully saturate ourselves here. And if we try to deny ourselves any part of that, if we try to, like, when we get into consciousness, we get into the shinies, right? Of, oh, I want to channel, I want to do this, I want to see this, and I'm happy to see this, and I'm happy to go into different dimensions, and da da da. And that's great. And it took me a long time to see this, and it's also, and that had to do also with the body stuff, right? So many of us get into this work and then we gain a lot of weight. And that's partially because we then disconnect from our presence physically here in the 3D, and that causes the body to want to anchor itself in. So when we acknowledge that we're just as much connected here, right? And that has to do with your physical body. It has to do with exercise and moving and sexuality and all kinds of stuff. It's all about how we use this tool to optimize this part of the hologram, as we then remember how to manage the whole thing together in a completely new way, right?
Right.
And so
that's what
who wouldn't want that? Exactly. Right. And so it can be summed up very, very simply as, I love helping people find their happiness, because that's really what this is.
Right.
Because then we all play on the playground together.
Right.
And so that's the thing for us. I mean, that's the goal for us. And that's in us talking about doing this energetic vision board. We're talking about energies. We're talking about tying all these energies together to set our new foundation of how to create differently moving forward in a way that is truly an ascended manner from where we have before. Yeah. Boy, that was just summed up so beautifully.
So for what would we do today to help people come to that place of connecting into that energy of, yes, I want to create that way. Yes, I want that expansion. Yes, I want that happiness.
Yeah. I'm ready for it, right? I'm ready, willing, and able to allow myself that. I'm worthy for it. I trust it. I listen to guidance for it. I forgive anything that prevents me from it, and accept that, come to gratitude for it. I take self-responsibility for it. I love the shadow side of bringing me here, and I sit in self-love to allow myself to saturate this whole process. Wow, that was just simple, right?
I know.
So I think that's the great place for us to just use as our creation for today.
I think so. I absolutely think so.
That space. All right. So let's just take a deep breath. Make ourselves comfortable, open our hearts as we close our eyes, and we set ourselves at the vibration where this is our truth. This is from where we exist, create, and experience. All right. That was funny in the beginning. It was very noisy. The ego's like, what about this? Wait, what about this? And I was like, nope, it's okay. We're good. It's all good. We're all done. Let's do something completely new. And then it was like really getting the ego to this place of going, no, we can do this just completely differently.
In the beginning, I kept feeling like that, like there was electricity in the air and crackling, and it was like almost afraid to move, that it would trigger something. And by the end, it just was, I felt that electric sense of possibility down to like the cellular level. And it was like just the opening up to that was really powerful.
Very nice. Yeah, something opened up. It was almost like a big flush out.
Right. Yeah.
At the end. And then that felt like a, I was like, well, okay, fine. Then let's just flush the toilet.
Right. Okay, I'll let go of all this and let it all flow in. That was
Right.
great.
Well, that was a yummy thing for everyone to hold on to for this week, to embrace, not hold on to, embrace and allow it to flow through us.
Yes.
Because I feel like if we allow it to just flow through, it'll just help to flush the other stuff out faster, more efficiently, more enjoyably, if we allow it, to really open the space for what's next.
Yes.
And we will be talking a lot more for the rest of the month about the new community and about the energetic vision board class. I can't think of a word.
Board, yes.
And a bunch of other stuff. That'll be really fun. Very exciting stuff, exciting times. So everyone have a great week. Thank you for joining us. This is Angela Coulter and
Mira Sieg Avagnani.
signing off with this week's Ascended World. Have a great one.